I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Guess what? We have a perfect pod headed your direction. That's right. We're talking future, alternate side parking, the fraudulent Boston Celtics, Jordan Poole and the Golden State Warriors, Andrew Kuo. How are you on this dismal Monday afternoon?
You say dismal, but I'm counting the minutes till the Met Gala. I'm going to go swing by, get my shopping cart, maybe try to duplicate some of these viral foods that have been happening, at the Met supermarket.
Like Met Foods.
Met Foods, a classic New York City establishment that they celebrate once a year. Everyone gets dressed up. It's fantastic.
So next up would be the Seatown Ball, the Gristides Classic.
Whoa. The Cinderella social.
Yeah, I'm going to the Key Foods Blast.
What's that Rochester one called?
Talking about Wegmans?
Yeah, Wegmans.
Don't even.
Oh, you're too close to home, huh? Well, where else do I get my garbage plate supplies?
It is true that Wegmans has the only Zweigels in town, as far as I know.
Is there a garbage plate aisle? There should be. There should be a garbage plate buffet. Only at Wegmans.
They honestly should. It would be so vile. It'd also be fairly small. You don't really put that many things on it. I heard there's long lines at the garbage plate restaurant in I think Clinton Hill, and everyone's lining up at 7:30 p.m. That's not the culture.
No one gets a Katz's Deli sandwich before 12.
Yeah, no. Rochester culture is not your Clinton Hill costume. I've said this many times.
Yeah. What is the Rochester costume? Are we talking crispy Cookies Hoops hat, maybe a crispy Cookies Hoops sweatshirt, maybe crispy Cookies Hoops sweatpants, and hocus?
Yeah, I think you'd be you'd be draped in RX Nephew, RX Pappy merch. I'm saying like dog shit records hoodie.
Tight. Does Syracuse count? Like, can I rock like a Malik Sealy jersey to pick up?
Malik Sealy went to St. John's. Get out of here!
God.
What's going on?
Who am I thinking of? Lawrence Moten.
Lawrence Moten. You've been partying too much over at Key Foods.
Yeah, it's true. I'm okay. So let me tell you about my Met Gala costume. It's a crispy cookies hat, a crispy cookie sweatshirt, etc. You know the drill, man. You're from Rochester.
No, I know the drilly. It's true. I absolutely do. I saw you on Twitter the other day, and you were talking about big sandwiches, and you've been complaining for years on that about big sandwiches.
For sure.
Oh, every
Guilty
sandwich.
as charged. Yeah.
Every sandwich is too big.
90%.
So the sandwiches that you were posting up,
it's crazy.
They were a regional stunt food, which I swear the garbage plate is not. The garbage plate is functional. It's a device to soak up alcohol in your system and make you feel disgusting and regret going out. That's its function. It has functionality. Not like these big pork loin schnitzely things. Was this Iowa, Indiana? You tell our hungry ass listeners what exactly the biggest sandwich I've ever seen is all about.
If you will allow me to paint the picture, it's a giant ass tenderloin that's been flattened to the size of a manhole cover. No Flavortown jokes. This is the real deal. This actually exists. It's from Indiana. So basically, it's like this cutlet or schnitzel type thing, pounded out, deep fried, and they put a little stunt bun on top, like a little tiny sesame seed bun. It looks awesome. There's some cops. There's some evidence of cops in these photos because there's like another bun. I'm like, yo, I see one sandwich. I don't see two sandwiches. I don't know what that extra bun is doing in the
So
background.
you're saying that they put the bun out there for the photo op, but in reality, they're cutting it up and putting it into multiple buns and feeding like a whole family of Indianapolisans. Indianapolisanites. What is it? What is it?
Indianapolis.
You were worse than I was.
Oh, step into my world. I'm just
Indianapolins. How about that?
Indianapolins. Okay. Indiana?
Indie rockers.
Sleazy. This is a sleazy
Indie
sandwich.
sleaze. Indie sleaze. Okay. So you're there with your indie sleaze family.
Yeah.
You've got a stunt bun, but you're saying there's an ancillary number of buns that are actually for eating this manhole sandwich.
Right. Like if you go into Katz's Deli, at 1 out of 5 people, sometimes myself, you'll ask for extra bread. And, you know, the guy will always say, like, I know you're making 2 sandwiches out of this. I'm not really supposed to do this, but I get it. These are too big, you know? Because 90% of the sandwiches are too big. But this sandwich...
If you go to Schwartz's, which makes incredible pastrami in Montreal, you get the bread you need, and then you get the meat you need. Like, you're doing the construction there. So you don't really run into that issue. Like if you want that, you know, dictionary joy of basketball thickness sandwich, you can do it. But you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, pick your poison. You're either a Dan Marley guy or an Oliver Miller guy. Me, myself, joy of basketball is Oliver Miller territory. But, I mean, okay, so my obsession with how big sandwiches are in America or New York City or New York proper is that it's a value over functionality thing. A sandwich this big, I'm even tempted to buy it because I'm American. I'm like, ooh, that's a good value. That is I'm doing capitalism at lunch. I'm just like, one. I'll take the biggest one you have, sir.
But what if you buy this? If you buy the biggest sandwich, but then distribute it to the
easy
to the proles. You let the proles have their own sandwich, like to each one to the sandwich eating abilities of their own, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean that's tricky. You'd be a Bernie sandwich, bro. The Bernie buns. I'm into that, or I'll split the difference. I'll bring it home and have 12 sandwiches for myself. In a true... that's not even splitting the difference. That's just a boss move.
Speaking of boss moves, did you read that article that went viral, I don't know if it's yesterday or the day before, about like elective bone lengthening surgery?
Ah.
I think the way they described it was like stature surgery or something along those lines, stature enhancement. And I felt like this was a direct body blow aimed at Short King Spring to say,
yeah.
yes, you small royals have been given this holiday, but in reality, we know you're out here trying to appropriate average culture.
I can't really speak on this because you haven't seen me since isolation. I've grown like 4 feet. It's crazy. I should like try out for the New York Knicks, man. Yeah.
So the article says that during the pandemic, a lot of short kings, I guess they had less time touching grass. They're indoors. They decide now was the time that they were going to reemerge from the pandemic. People will have forgotten that they were short kings, and now they come out as medium kings, and the world is their oyster.
I guess what do? They break your bones, they give you a book, and then they put a slice of pizza in your hand so you can slide it into your back pocket. Those are the things to lengthen your stature. The staturally challenged, right?
Well, it all seems to be based on solely leg bones.
Yep.
They weaken it and put little cracks into it, and then they put metal rods in there that slowly expand over time. And apparently, they can give you up to, I don't know, 3 inches in height. How able are people to like participate in, say, sports, for example, like basketball, in specifically
Probably easy.
after this? Like, can I be 6'6" like you have?
When Paul George snapped his leg straight cleanly in half, I wonder if the doctors was like, you want to add a couple inches on this? Like, do you want to become a power forward?
Want to come back 7 feet? Why not?
Yeah. I think it's doable. I wondered about this too. Like, are you going to have a gait or a limp for the rest of your life? Are there complications? Like, can you participate in, like, if you're a marathon runner, can you still run a marathon? Do you have to wear Hokas every day for the rest of your life? For that extra padding?
It sounds as if it takes, I don't know, like 6 months to walk normally again. It sounds like there was talk of canes and walkers and things like that.
It's crazy.
So for you to be a professional athlete, this seems impossible. I mean, maybe there's a universe where this technology gets better, and I'm not saying this would be a good thing or recommending it, but maybe a basketball prospect at like 14 or 15 when they're still growing would get it. I don't know. Or maybe they'd stop growing at 18. You say, hey, look, he's 6'5". Let's make him 6'8". He'll take 6 months off, and we'll come back and maybe get drafted. It's kind of a gross idea of like body modification, but at the same time, it's like your genes are arbitrary, and as far as you're concerned.
I think it's ethical. Like, there was a New York Times cover story years ago about No Sin Bin, baseball prospects, No Sin Bin, who elect to get Tommy John surgery, No Sin Bin, before they enter college, so they don't have to get it ever again. And it kind of strengthens your tendon anyway. So they do preventative Tommy John surgery on your ligaments in your pitching elbow, No Sin Bin. Is that ethical?
Yeah, I don't see why not. But right. Like, how different is using steroids and getting surgery? Like, why is one of them moral and appropriate, and why is one of them cheating?
Why is LeBron James allowed to spend $1 million on his like health protocols, and like a little steroid here, a little leg lengthening there is not ethical? I don't know.
Why are people allowed to lift weights? Like, those aren't real muscles. They're the product of, like, what are they called? Reps? Is that what they call them?
Have you ever done a weightlifting regimen?
I have, but I don't do it that much.
I heard it's like the best thing you can do.
Yeah,
Very healthy.
You actually feel like legitimately stronger pretty quickly.
Wow. Yeah, man. I love all this shit that has come out in the last 10 years because of nerds, but like stretching and warming up is not necessarily something athletes should do or people should do unless that is the exercise. Like, yoga's great, whatever. And like lifting weights is as good as cardio. Who'd have thunk?
I'm a full believer in not stretching out.
I don't like to either. Yeah.
And I think this is mostly due to playing lots of basketball in New York City gyms where you have a finite amount of time there. And if everyone spends 15 minutes stretching, then you're missing a game. So you can either warm up your shot, for 5-10 minutes and then play, or stretch and not warm up your shot. And I'd rather get a few shots up first. But yeah, at the Cookies Friday run, there's one guy who always wants to play in the second game because he wants to warm up, and we only had 8, and we're just there screaming at him like, come on, dude, you have to start playing. He's like, give me 5 more minutes just to stretch my back. You're holding up the process. Is that for
comfort or preventative measures?
I think it's preventative, but
that's whack. Get in the game, bro.
You're holding up the gang.
Yeah.
But my buddy Jacoby is a firm advocate in never stretching either. So I feel like there's a precedent here. Like, never stretch, never warm up. Just get out there and run full speed, and you'll be fine.
I mean, Donald Trump, right? You only have a limited number of tomahawk. You can touch glass 3 or 4 times a game. You don't want to You don't want to waste that on stretching when no one's watching, when the buckets don't count.
I will say though, I absolutely hate walking into a game without getting shots up. So if I have time before a game, shots never stretching. That's the Dietrich promise.
They call you many things, but the microwave is not one of them.
No, I gotta.
You're a slow cooker.
Otherwise, I'm coming in firing up even more bricks than normal.
Do you like to warm up like passing? Do you ever think you can just muscle memory shooting, whatever? But do you ever just be like, instead of stretching, instead of getting shots up, I'm just gonna dribble and pass? Or are those skills that need as many?
Well, passing, I'm not sure how you do. Just throw behind the backs, bouncing off a wall or something. But dribbling for sure. But that you can warm that up. You just kind of do some crossovers. Just warming your legs up.
What I mean is in a game. Are you just I'm super cold, but I'm just gonna pass for 2 possessions, and then by the 3rd possession, I'll be fucking dunking on your head?
A little bit. It was funny. I was playing another pickup run last week, and there was this guy who just kept whistling these. He had 5 turnovers the first game, and the passes were just outrageous. And I'm like, who is this guy, and why is he doing this?
Tatum-esque.
But by game 4, he was just dropping dimes all over the place. So maybe he just had to actually get his passes warmed up. So it's feasible.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Trump on this. I think during a one run, you have a finite number of passes, tomahawk dunks, and screaming rebounds, and use those however you may. But they're going to run out on you.
I've extinguished my full reservoir of tomahawk dunks.
You've used them all up.
I have none left.
Wow.
All my tomahawks are gone.
Well, you have some off the backboard kind of sloppy put-ins that grill masters will fawn over.
So how are you feeling though about this surgery? Are you going to get it?
I don't need it because I've already read a book and I'm towering over my former self. But it sounds crazy, right? So one of my friends got that surgery for their nose, for sleeping, for sleep apnea, and to clear up their septum, I believe. And while they were in the office, the doctor was like, hey, would you like to also change your nose? Because they had they're very good looking people, but they had a bigger nose throughout their whole life. And the doctor was like, hey, if you want to do it, you're going to be under a bandage anyway. You just want to get this done as well. And she had been talking about, or they had been talking about this for ever long I've known them. And finally the option was there and they didn't take it. They were like, no, this is actually me, so I'm not going to do it. So shout out to all you short kings. Stay short.
So I'm going to read a paragraph from that article, and I want to know if this has happened to you. I want to. You can confide in us, your loyal podcast hosts and listeners. All right, so here's from that article. It's on BuzzFeed. Scott, not his real name, who is 25 and works in digital media, said that before the surgery, colleagues constantly made remarks about his stature. I was not treated with respect, Scott told me. At every single workplace I've been in, there have been several situations where people commented on my height to discredit me entirely as a person. One disagreement at work led to a colleague snapping at him and rebutting, "Don't be so sure of yourself, short man."
Yes.
Over the years, the insults began to take their toll. Here's my short guy voice. I was waking up 2 hours before my alarm every day just to walk around the neighborhood and cry.
Where's me gold?
We're exposed as frauds. The Bucks beat us
Tatum
in
is
game
top
1.
3. Jaylen Brown is a superstar.
Have you ever woke up 2 hours before your alarm to walk around the city and cry?
Me, is that a question or is that part of the quote?
No, it's a question. That he does that. I'm asking you, have you done that?
Yeah, but not because I'm short. It's because sandwich drama, the wrong Met Gala, all these things. But,
yesterday was humiliating. I showed it in my tuxedo. I went by Gristedes, and I was laughed out of there. I picked up a sandwich. It was enormous. The weight of it forced me to topple over, and I soiled my tux.
Those heat lamp meatballs just ruined the entire night.
My chariot awaits.
In that article, there was a lot about dating. I mean, you read something about work. I mean, I've been laughed at for first of all, I've been laughed at for many reasons aside from my height. And I
Your sense of humor, for one.
Yeah, right. Laugh with me, right? I do have a bit of a Napoleon complex, but I crush it by making the biggest book possible with my dear podcast partner, Ben Dietrich. So that's done. I don't have that anymore. Yeah. But the article talks a lot about dating, and I've been washed so long that I've never joined a dating site. Like, I don't know what.
Well, you just have broads on deck.
Right.
You don't need to delve into like the digital
broads.
pool.
What was this, 1920?
Yeah, you got a bunch of broads on deck. You got dames at arm's reach.
But a lot of these websites have algorithms that filter out short kings, and like, is this fraudulent? It reminds me. Remember that news story a few years ago where there was some guy in China who married his wife and had kids, and then somehow finally saw her without makeup, or found that she had gotten. Oh wait, she found that she had gotten so much plastic surgery that their kids were so ugly, but they looked like her previous to it. So he sued her. Incredible. We're going down this path with this leg lengthening shenanigan, right? Like, what if your kids are short, right? It's like, God damn it. I didn't know you weren't 6'7".
I've unearthed some photos of you. I mean, you seem to be 25 years old, but you're 5'4", and not 6'7". I'm sorry. What's occurred here?
I thought just because I was Asian, my partner said I was touching glass, but I was really saying touching grass. It's grass on the ground. I was born in Queens.
Slapping grass. That's what I said. I grew up slapping grass.
Yeah. It's like, I thought you were dunking and slapping. No. We're getting into many, many touchy things, including grass and things that grow on the ground. But it's fraudulent, right? Like, what if there's a lawsuit? That's like, oh, cool. I'm gonna reproduce with this tall king or queen and produce a bunch of ballers that would.
See, this is why you have to test for wingspan. Can't fake wingspan. If someone's there walking around 6 feet tall, but mysteriously has a 5'8" wingspan, the game is afoot.
What if it's the opposite? What if I do arm lengthening surgery and I have like a 7-foot wingspan, but I'm a 5'6" king? But tiny hands. Right? Like...
hold on. I didn't see anybody talking about this. So I think it maybe went viral the other day, but I had not heard about this. Brandon Ingram apparently has acknowledged, I'm talking about people with really long arms, that he has a fetish for little people.
Wait, what? Okay, go on.
And there's photos from his first girlfriend who's like 4'2" or 4'3".
Right.
How is this not a joke that we've had to use for ages? We're all here making jokes about Ben Simmons breaking backboards with missed jumpers. We've got a guy who has a little person fetish and has dated them and also has the longest arms in the NBA. Like, that is rife fodder for good humor. No shaming, though. No shaming.
No shaming. How the hell? No shaming. How the hell does Shaquille O'Neal get away with this as well? Infamously has dated short royalty. Just like plucking the most royal short people out of the dating pool. And also aspires to be a police officer. How do we let him get away with this when Ben Simmons is public enemy number one?
It is crazy that Shaq was a cop.
Yeah.
An actual cop.
Photos, not like a
Not
Rick
like-
Ross like debatable thing. Maybe yes, maybe no.
I mean, Rick Ross was definitely
there's
working
proof for sure.
for like the
Shout out to
Florida
50.
penal system.
Yeah. But Shaq, I think, while Rick Ross probably would not love to talk about that, Shaq, I think, still loves law enforcement. How come he didn't buy a stake in the Utah Jazz?
And we'll talk more about basketball and cops later, but you saw that post that I think it was, I don't know if it was Hoops Hype or Ball is Life or whatever. Someone put up something like just complaining about John Morant dancing, complaining about Cat, like waving to the crowd after their loss, and like blowing kisses and like thanking them for the season, and bitching about people taking threes too long. It's this long, wordy post just complaining about stuff, and then Dame Lillard's like, "I agree." Could you not be tiresome for once, dude?
Listen, Dame is out of the playoffs the right way. Like, he has never been in the conversation for a championship, but the right way. So, until you know real hip hop, you don't know Dame Lillard.
Speaking of which, I have not watched Ozark since season 1. You are abreast of the new one. And apparently, from what I've heard on the internet, they're talking Illmatic. The greatest East Coast album since, I don't know, maybe ever, if that's the person you're talking to. Like, it's Illmatic. It's the sacred cow of New York rap. Why are they talking about this on Ozark, about a family from Chicago who hangs out in like the indie sleaze belt?
It was crazy. So, like, this is a continuation of a few months ago, the cliffhanger. This is one finale season. Shit goes down. I enjoy this show. There's issues. It's not perfect like this podcast, but something happens, and then Julia Garner, the Golden Globe award-winning actor for this show, it's time for her to shine. So they make her character, things happen, and it's time for her character to get badass. Throughout the whole first episode of the drop last week, she listens to Illmatic. So it opens with, like, I believe, like, Represent or New York State of Mind. And then it goes through like half the album throughout the whole episode, where she's driving around seething, and it's another song, and it's another song, and it's more Illmatic songs. And I'm like, great record. Nas, the peak of his powers, probably.
No, it's a great record.
Yeah.
We're not contrarian enough to make fun of Illmatic. It's a great album.
It's a great record, and
Can you tell me how old this character is?
she's probably around 30. So she's the badass this season.
A 30-year-old who's really into Illmatic seems unlikely. Seems a little sus.
It does seem a little sus. I'm like, this should be Gunna. Or this should be any of the RXs. Or, like, this should be, like, the best grime rapper in America, 21 Savage, right? But it's Illmatic because our generation is aging into, like, roles where we get to put, like, Pearl Jam everywhere and Illmatic everywhere and grunge, and in the same episode there's a Wu-Tang song, and I'm like, all right, me and you used to go to Fat Beats all the time. Where's the Artifacts? Where's the Cocoa Brothers? Where's Boot Camp
here's the
Clan?
thing. If this character is 30 years old and it's set in the contemporary time period, which I believe it is,
I think so. They have
I think it's
iPhones,
set,
yeah, I
it's
think
set
so.
nowish, yeah. People really love music that came out when they were, let's say, 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Early high school. That's kind of like the sweet spot for where you're imprinted like a baby duckling with your favorite music.
Gravediggers.
So that would put you 2007, which is like Kanye graduation.
Yeah.
That's like Lupe Fiasco. Wu-Tang Clan, 8 diagrams. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it should have been like Dizzy Rascal, right? And Sorry to mention it. It's been a while since I got to mention Dizzy, so I just had to get that in there. I know it's not relevant, but
You're fully allowed to talk about Dizzy Rascal at your leisure, and in fact, I prefer it to your other material.
well, come on, the sandwich shit is gold. But anyway, so the if we were this character, would we be like pumping the Beatles, or like the Beach Boys, or like Grandmaster Flash? Like, I mean, when I was 15 and consuming all this fucking amazing music from New York City, I was not really listening to like the Furious Five. Like, I didn't really care, you know. Special Ed was funny. I liked him, Slick Rick, obviously, but like I didn't pay homage to the founders, because you have one car ride to the Met Gala to pick up those heat lamp meatballs. You're not gonna waste it on like the music your father listened to, right?
Well, I don't. I feel like there was some kids growing up who were like into 70s music, you know, or
Sure.
80s music. They're just very into those genres as like a personality quirk.
Still,
Of course.
Yeah.
And you see that today. People who are in their early 20s who are like super into like 90s rap or early 2000s rap. And there's always going to be that kind of there's always going to be that kind of appeal, and it's cool because it allows people of a different generation to enjoy music that otherwise they wouldn't have heard of, and it's enough of an anomaly that it doesn't become overwhelming.
Right.
You made a good point before, though, is that that rap has become like dad music, and these are the people who are running TV shows.
Yep.
They're the people who are, deciding what music gets played at a house party in Euphoria, and like it's DMX.
right. Yeah, it's people like budgeting licensing for these shows. It's just like we just aged into it, kind of. I mean, I can't believe I cannot shake Pearl Jam from my life. Pearl Jam is like all over these shows that I'm watching. It's like, and then I watch The Batman. It's another fucking Pearl Jam song.
It would have been cooler if this character was kind of going through the whole episode and they just kept playing songs from like T-Pain's Epiphany.
Oh my god.
Or
Yeah.
Young Jock's Hustlenomics.
Anyway, my bad. It wasn't Pearl Jam. It was Nirvana in The Batman. But like you don't see many NBA fans like wearing Stackhouse jerseys or like Anton Jameson jerseys, right?
It starts out, with her listening to Make Me Better from Fab. And it basically goes through the entire From Nothing to Something album.
Yeah. How did the Locks blow the 3-1 lead, though? I thought, like, Jada was going to guest on everything. How is he not on the Gunna record? What happened?
Two Knicks adjacent.
Yeah, okay.
Once
that was a test and you passed.
Once Bing Bong, hit the skids, end of the road for the Versus champs.
Fat Joe was the king of the mountain for a couple of weeks in the beginning of the season, and then the pictures of his facial hair came out. Those are tight lines, man.
Yeah, it's like he's got Carlos Boozer's hairline on his chin.
Respect to Fat Joe, man. In that
Sure.
Bing Bong era, I went back to some of his first records. They're amazing. They're just fucking amazing.
What was the second album? Jealous One's Envy? Joe. That was a pretty good record. I liked it.
And that was the era where there was an R&B singer named Joe who put out a record. I think it was called My Name is Joe. And there was Casey and JoJo.
There were so many Joes back then. More on Embiid later. New music. I have been... Wait. Are we done talking about Illmatic? Do we have anything else left on that?
We will dig it up when appropriate, but this conversation is fucking done.
Okay, we're done with that. We don't need to talk about how they should have used Illadelph Half-Life or Sunrises in the East.
Wait, what the Ozark, that's in Missouri, right?
Yeah, so it really should be not even Nelly. Maybe Murphy Lee's later material.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Yeah.
Chingy.
Chingy,
That's what
Chingy,
it
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been great.
No, that would have been reasonable. I also think they might be from Chicago. So back to Lupe Fiasco.
Oh yeah, right. So the bullshit happens in Chicago. They go back and forth, I believe.
It clearly should have been Kanye's graduation. End of story.
Like water for chocolate. Common sense.
No, too early. I think we want Finding Forever.
Okay. Or maybe his NBA All-Star raps. That would be cool if she was sitting in the car brooding over murdering somebody, and it's his introduction of Damian Lillard.
I'm into it.
I was hoping you would rap a verse. I was like, please rap.
I wish I remembered his ones.
I know. They're so good. You know how everyone clowns...
And there was a great meme making fun of Gobert. I forget what it was.
It's like everyone clowns the Mr. Freeze Schwarzenegger character lines. It should be the common all-star introduction. How did the Ice Age? It's like, I don't know. Just an aside. Get to work, internet.
Oh yeah, it was the meme was a picture of Common from that all-star introduction. It says he is coronavirus and he don't care starting at center. It's Rudy Gobert.
I mean, that's even a kind of advance for what he busted out, but I love it.
He doesn't have bars of that caliber.
Yo,
Those are bars of steel.
like Water for Chocolate was a very good record.
I liked a lot of his early records.
Yeah.
He was really, really good. I actually had Can I Borrow $1 on tape.
Oh,
and
shit.
That was not a good album, but I listened to it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then his next couple were very good quality. He was an excellent rapper. Did I tell you I played basketball with him one time?
Oh, man. Okay, tell me about his game.
So I was interviewing him for a music magazine, and I want to say it might have been about when actually Finding Forever came out, or the one, I think, or the one that Go. I don't know. It was that era. It was later Common, and they asked me what I wanted to do because I was going to go out to Chicago to meet him there, and I said, "How about we play some basketball?" And
Yeah. He's been in some Jock Jams games, right?
He was like, "Yes, let's do it."
Yeah.
So I go out to Chicago, go to this gym with him, and there's a couple guys around. We end up playing 21 for like 2 hours. It was like pretty good caliber basketball. Common's good.
Is he
Good
taller
player.
than you?
He's about my height, but he's in really good shape, because he's doing movies and he's in action films.
Sure.
So he was definitely like a solidly built dude, and he kind of played like you would expect for someone who's had his career. Like, he wasn't flashy. He was like solid. He took care of the ball. He took mid-range jumpers. He played defense. And if you operate under the idea that basketball reveals character, which I think is very debatable, but I do like the idea, you could see him as a rapper and entertainer in the way that he played basketball. And then I think we played 2 long games at 21, and there was one other guy playing, and I bricked my chances to win because you had to hit the 3 at the end, and I bricked them so I didn't win either one. Common won 1, the other guy won 1, and I got shut out.
Wow. Well, it sounds different than what I witnessed at the Nada tournament, where you drained those buckets, those fuck you threes, as they say, to take it to the end, the championship. You hoisted the trophy. Where
are you going with this? Is there another Nada event coming up or anything?
This Saturday, if you're listening to it, this pod this week, we are going to do a live pod at the Nada Art Fair from, I believe, 2:30 to 3:30. We'll be chilling there probably for a little while. So if you want to come down and watch another perfect pod, man, live, it'll be unbelievable. So that's where we'll be this Saturday, and you can walk around, look at some art. I believe they'll probably have some food around, maybe some giant sandwiches with like a schnitzel the size of your dome.
Don't promise people something they're not going to have.
I'm saying there's a possibility.
Okay, I guess it's theoretically possible. One thing I'm concerned about here is that, when we make a typical podcast, we record one of these, and we record for maybe 8 to 10 hours.
All right.
Painstakingly edit all of our wrong takes get removed. And we polish that turd down into the perfect podcast. So doing it a live ep is going to be very tricky for us, even though it's a lot shorter than our typical 12 to 14 hour recording window that's culled down into an hour and a half of perfection. It's going to be very tricky for us, and we're going to have to be on our A game. And I just want to make sure that you're going to come out there and you're going to want it more.
So you're saying my 93 minutes of RJ deserving a max contract is like not going to work? We can't just cut that out?
Most people don't understand that I do approximately 2 hours of Rochester content on a weekly pod that gets minced down to the typical 37 minutes that you hear in the hour and a half pod.
Unlike that weird meat mince they put on every garbage plate that I've seen. What the hell is that stuff? Is it chili or is it like a meat sauce?
It's a meat gravy. Yes, this is staying. This is staying. This is not going on the cutting room floor. Meat gravy needed to be clarified. It's staying. Okay, so interns, hear me roar.
I mean, fuck, man. Is Philly represented properly in our meat gravy talk? Like, someone asked me the other day, talking about food.
Interns, you can cut that.
What? You got to rattle their cages more. They're tired. They're hungry. They're just pushing out hit T-shirt after hit hat after hit T-shirt. It's just. You got to raise your voice a little bit.
Well, they will get their less gruel as a result.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day what a cheesesteak was. It's sort of like asking someone how a zipper works. You're like, I know how that works. And you're like, oh, tell me if I'm wrong. Frozen, paper-thin cut ribeye with American or Whiz in a regular-ass bun, a sub roll, with hot peppers and or onions and peppers. It has to be ribeye, right?
I'm not totally sure because I've never made them, except when I was working at a diner as a teenager. And we would just have these sort of stacks of meat, and you would kind of hack them apart on the on the grill. So I can't remember how they were cut, and I've never made one as an adult. But you would mash them all up, and then you put the cheese on them, and you melt it, and then at least this is how we're doing it in Rochester. So I can't say this is authentic at all. You'd melt the cheese, scoop it into the bun, and go on from there.
In a roundabout way, where I was going with this amazing transition was a conversation that had someone from Philly being like, no, it's a specific thing. There's rules to this. You cannot deviate from it. It is what it is. Sort of like the way Philly feels about their basketball team and rappers. Like from the Roots, maybe? Here's a hot take. Did the Roots, a good rap group, set Philly culture back? And I'm saying they were really good. They had a couple great records. But like
where are you going with this? I like where you're going, but keep going. Keep going here.
The rapper for the Roots, Black Thought, it pops up on social media every now and then as maybe a underrated all-time artist. But like, he's a very serious rapper. He has some jokes here and there, but he's a classic rapper backed by a live band. So you have like a drummer, obviously Questlove. You have guitars, you have instruments, and there's like a pushing of authenticity there that doesn't really exist anywhere else in like hip hop history, except for the New York City subway system. And I wonder if little things like one of the most famous groups to come out of your city has like a reverberation to the way you think about culture. Like, well, that's not the real way you play basketball or act, because like we play the real drums. We don't use samples. Like, we have musicians up in Philly. We have cheesesteaks that are the real deal. We have Black Thought, who is realer than your guy, Fabulous. Get out of here with Fabulous. Do you know what I mean? It's a stretch. I do,
but I still think I like your theory. I respect it.
Thank you.
But I don't think Philly rap is beholden to the Roots at all.
That's
and when
a very
I think
good
about
point.
Philly rap, in general,
Freeway.
it's Freeway, it's Joey Jihad, it's Vodka, it's
Right.
Chic
Yeah.
Raw.
Yeah.
It's like to me, it's battle rap.
Beanie.
And Beanie, like Young Chris.
Yeah.
That to me is Philly rap. And even if you went all the way back to whatever, like Hilltop Hustlers and like Schoolie D and shit.
Yep.
Philly rap is gangster music.
Yes. Right. And yeah, and when
I feel like Will Smith and the Roots were kind of the anomalies to that. If I'm thinking about the sort of like overall aesthetic of Philly rap, those guys are probably the most well known, but they also don't sound like the other stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe my very roundabout point is when Black Thought goes trending, like last night, a little bit today, but how he's probably the most underrated rapper of all time. I feel like this community that's making it trending is like talking to itself, because they would never consider Beanie or Freeway.
Well, this is Gen X shit.
Yeah.
Gen X or geriatric millennials.
Wow.
Who were very into rap at the time. I mean, look, I think Black Thought is a great rapper. He's really talented. At one point, he was someone I would say, oh, he's like one of the best 5 rappers. He was really cool.
Absolutely.
And he was just gifted with words. And when he does these things on Hot 97, and he's like, oh, here's 11-minute freestyle with like tons of punchlines and these elegant, ornate, multi-syllabic stanzas.
Yeah,
he's great.
He's a heavy
incredibly
lifter,
talented.
Right? He's a weightlifter. He's not lazy.
He can do all that stuff. But I also feel like he never really let his personality out. And maybe part of that was that he had a really sort of tragic upbringing with a lot of terrible things that happened around him. And maybe he just wasn't comfortable discussing that. But he was always kind of a cipher, no pun intended. He was in my favorite artists are generally the ones who are like kind of open books versus just technicians. And I think he's kind of like the master, like technician.
Right. GQ magazine, our friends at GQ just put Future on the cover with the words "the greatest rapper alive." Was that the title? There was a debate about that because I mean, Future's old now too. He's been out for like 15 years, right?
He was down with the Dungeon Family when Outkast was first coming out. There's photos of him hanging out like in the studio with Outkast and stuff.
And he had kind of like he kind of had a Lana Del Rey-ish change, right? Like he came out one way and then like rebranded himself and became I think also one of the greatest artists ever.
I did not know his music before he came out as this incarnation of Future. Mm-hmm. Like maybe there was earlier stuff. I guess there was that was maybe sonically different, but I just don't know it.
Did you ever listen to the Genius record before Wu-Tang got like super hard?
A little bit.
It's a funny record.
Yeah, he made like sex songs and stuff. It was really,
it was whimsical to say the least. It was like party music, not unlike Kid and Play, but he was wordy and funny, and the Rizzo was around. It was interesting. And then they
Words from the Genius.
Yeah, it's a kind of a good record, but I don't know. Did you listen to the new Future?
Yeah, I did. It's good. I would say I'm a large Future fan. Mm-hmm. When you get those end of the year, like Spotify,
you listen to a lot of Future.
Future was definitely my most listened to artist like a couple years back. Not recently. That's obviously all RX. But a couple years back, Future dominated my listening playlist. Yeah, I think he's great. And I don't know if he actually is, doing as many drugs as he says he does. I don't know if he's actually popping beans constantly, drinking tons of syrup. I don't know. But I think his variety of braggadocious, bawling depression is really enchanting.
Yeah, he's one of the great artists ever. He's been at this for a while, and like, there's a lot of chatter about like Gen Z's trying to figure out if he's toxic. You know, it's like his future like the
He's
worst.
he's definitely toxic.
I mean,
right?
he'll rap about it, right? Like,
but also who cares?
I mean, that's when you know you're a superstar. When people are like, okay, his music is great, but is he like an annoying dude? I'm like, that's when this John Morant cat stuff comes out, right? It's like, is Cat kind of like a dork? I'm like, yeah, but he's an awesome player. It's like, he's soft. I'm like, well, based off of what? You know, like, but Future, like, I'm looking at his discog right now. Damn, it's impressive, man. He started in 2011, maybe even earlier. I mean, I liked Honest, Hendrix. Like, there's some wonderful ups and downs of his career. Beast Mode 2, Jesus Christ.
I mean, Monster is one of my favorite albums ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fuck. So the new one, should we be listening to the new one?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think it's his best album in a while.
Maybe since like
has-
PS2?
Yeah, I think probably so. Yeah. I mean, I'd like some. It's hard. Honestly, they've kind of all melded together. Like
Totally.
I forget what's on Hendrix and what was on something else. But
So, yeah.
it's good. It's one of those albums that when Future starts the album going hard, like it means a lot. Like, all right, he's going in. Like, the first couple songs are tough.
Yeah.
And they're really good.
He's got some Kevin Durant in him, right? Like he's salty about Russell Westbrook. I mean Russell Wilson. My bad.
He said, "I got fentanyl in my diamonds." There's a couple of good songs. I think one's called "Love You Better" and the next one's "Massaging Me." It's like a really good back to back.
Massaging Me. That's nice.
Massaging Me.
That's nice.
Is he chaotic neutral? Can we really be listening to a chaotic neutral rapper? It's setting off my imposter syndrome.
Is Drake understood as a GOAT? Future, I feel like, is debatable, but do old heads and young kids accept Drake as like one of the best rappers ever? Because he was controversial for a while, and I feel like now it's just he's been crowned, right? Like,
I think he just endured, wore people down. Like he's been around for so long.
Yeah.
He's had so many big records. He's still relevant in a way that I don't care about, but he's still out there making songs. He still has hit records.
yeah,
I mean, that's my only critique of the Future album is that I just don't care about the guests on it. I thought Kodak sounded pretty good, but overall,
yeah.
it's like I thought the Gunna album was good, but I don't need more Gunna. I don't need more Drake. I don't need
No more Gunna.
I just don't need them on Future's album. Give me some new guests. Like give me some 42 Doug or whatever.
Can we get a fake Lil Durk on this record? Just like a version, someone who looks like Gunna will do.
Well, here are the guests for the most part: Kanye, Gunna, Young Thug, Drake, Kodak, Drake again, and then you've got ESTG on there.
Yeah, that's kind of tight though. Like, I mean, tight as in
Bold-faced
streamlined.
names, but not necessarily compelling. I don't know. I actually kind of skip most of those songs.
Yeah, I hear you. Fair enough.
Anyway.
Where is Future during the playoffs? Has he been courtside anywhere? Yesterday at the Memphis game, I saw your boy Yo Gotti sitting next to the fake Usher.
It is amazing how everyone thought John Morant's father was Usher, and then they had them sit next to each other at the next game.
I love it. People are hating John Morant's father. There's been kind of like a relitigation of John Morant in the last few weeks. With him dancing on the Timberwolves logo, him dancing more after he danced on the Timberwolves logo, his father being in every shot, sort of like Suge Knight in every video. He's just like lurking in the background. People are trying to find reasons to hate on John Morant. How do you feel about this?
I think that it has happened. You know, his dad is not that old, right?
He looks younger than like a lot of people I drink beers with.
No, I'm saying his dad is in his early 40s.
Yeah, for sure.
So his dad's probably younger than Usher.
Oh, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy. I didn't think about that.
Or
Yeah.
they're the same age, but he might be younger.
Let's find out, internet.
But yeah, I think anytime someone like Ja has had this sort of sweet ride for a while, eventually, if you don't win and you're demonstrative, people are going to get annoyed by you, and you're going to run against teams that other people have allegiance to. You know, sitting around during the regular season and winning games, like no one really cares. But getting the playoffs, maybe people like Golden State more, and now they want you to lose. Maybe they wanted the Timberwolves to win, and they're annoyed when you're celebrating and dancing. So I think we come up with our agendas on which players annoy us when we care about the results of their games. Or they underperform too long, or we think they're overrated, etc. You know, I think Ja's a really special player, but he obviously has some work to do, especially on defense. His father hasn't annoyed me yet, but it does fall into the prototype of, well, why is dad there? Why aren't all the other players' dads there? Is his dad there because Ja is the star, so his dad's allowed to be there? Like, where's Melton's parents? Like John Conchar, where is his mom?
Oh, Conchar doesn't get that ticket hookup? Come on, man. Just quickly, Usher's 43. According to latestinbollywood.com, T. Morant is 32.
There you go, Usher, older than T.
T. That's very young, but fair enough. Bollywood, latestinbollywood.com.
I trust them.
Yeah. But yeah, like we talked about this a couple pods ago, but like the idea of masculinity in these high pressure games is like kind of gets in the way of kind of what we're watching. And I think people clown on a player like Cat too much. Like, in what universe is Cat soft? You know, like he just like he doesn't have a menacing persona, but he's huge. So like,
If Cat had a deeper voice
yeah,
and was a little bit better on defense, no one would call him soft.
he's a good
But-
fucking player, man.
Like, is he soft because he likes shooting threes? Because this kind of goes back to what we're talking about with masculinity, and that there was a Daryl Morey quote from a podcast that he did maybe a year and change ago, and he was talking about how, like, you learn about the culture of a sport when you find out how people are willing to lose. And if you're willing to lose when the other team just jays you down from the perimeter and gets open threes and busts your ass with shooting, you just shrug. But when the other team bodies you in the post, gets rebounds, puts back, dunks on your head, you say that's not acceptable. We can't lose getting bodied in the paint. Not cool. We need to get Drummond out there, because, like, as men,
Greg Monroe, you're playing.
they're running down the court doing the "he's too small" hand gesture. Now they're tapping their own heads. We can't live like this.
Yeah,
Let's lose with some dignity.
it's not the he's too small gesture. It's I got that leg elongation surgery gesture. It's like, oh, you wonder why I'm taller? That surgery, baby.
I used to be this tall.
Yeah. 2 years ago, before the pandemic, I used to be this tall. But yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying these playoffs so much, and the quality of basketball is like night and day, and from the regular season, even the first round to the second round, but also the takes are like kind of eroding too, and a lot of it is because of those TNT guys, you know, because I think they've used up all their takes in their lives, and you have a finite number of takes, and now they're just busting out like they're soft, they can't be me. look at my rings. And I'm like, totally fair enough, but they don't have like nuanced thoughts anymore. So Cat is soft.
That discussion from last week that involved Katie, you sent me a link to it, and my mind melted after about 30 seconds of them arguing who's allowed to be in the conversation or at the table. I'm like, we're not even talking about things anymore. Well,
what does a bus
if you haven't
driver
won a
mean? Are you a
championship,
bus
you
driver?
can't be in the conversation, or you're exactly
Yeah.
you're at the table, or you're a bus driver. It's like, well, you can't even comment on that because you've never been the bus driver on a team, but you're a champion, but you're not a champion.
Shout out to
You've won a
Durant.
championship, but you're not a champion. You're on the bus, but not a bus driver, you dig?
He trolled them so hard. He had them fighting each other. He had Barkley kind of like ashamed that he never won a championship. He's like, yo, when I'm with all the greats, like I can't sit at that table. And Kenny's like, yes, you can. You're Charles Barkley. He's like, no, but I never won a chip, and that'll never change. And Kenny's like, but you're a champion to us in general. And Shaq is
Yes,
like,
but I'm not
"Well, I
a
haven't-"
champion. I'm ship winner. I'm just a champion.
I'm like,
And
these
I
guys are
have to sit at
melting down.
I have to sit at a small counter on these tiny stools, and I can't sit at the champion table.
It's so
There's
weird.
guys like Kenny Smith.
Right. But then Shaq goes at Kenny, be like, well, you're not a bus driver, and me and Kenny were bus drivers. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy, man. Shout out to Kevin Durant.
I got lost almost immediately. I was intently trying to follow, and my brow grew more and more furrowed.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to make sense of this shit. I don't blame. I'm not kink shaming anybody because it's hard to make sense of a
Never,
48-minute game, right? And there's a finite. Like, I don't know how to talk about that Nets elimination. Of course, we can
But
say
maybe there are finite takes.
absolutely there are ways. Like, let's make fun of the Nets. I mean, as a Knicks fan, let's go. They lost 4 in a row against the Celtics. A bunch of leprechauns beat them after they all got leg elongation surgery. It's like, sure.
Well, we were talking about this. We were talking about this last week. And how do you present a conversation about something that happened on the court without being literal?
Sure.
What happened? Well, they defended Kevin Durant pretty well. They had defenders at the elbows. He would go left. There was a guy waiting to get in his handle. Forced him into some shots. Half was good defense. Half he just seemed to be a little bit cold. Like, boring.
Right.
Can I get a finite take here? Okay, Kevin Durant's a bitch.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Tatum's on the cusp
dying
of being
before.
number 3. Yeah, top 3. But yeah, that was a tough series to watch. I kind of delighted in it in a way because it's fun to see something strange happen, and it was very odd to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving kind of like struggle at times, and it was definitely interesting to see Giannis have no problems at all in one game, just one game versus the Celtics. He kind of
also he did. Let's talk about that because we're dwelling in the past. Let's move on.
Yes.
I was just going to say the one thing about the Nets series that was sort of odd was they lost 4 games, a sweep, and they've been roundly mocked for it, which is totally justified. They did not win a game, but it was by a total of 18 points, which is kind of wild, where they got absolutely spanked in terms of being down 4-0, but they were competitive or even up in virtually every game. It's like, do they deserve to get torched as the victims of a sweep? Of course. They got swept.
Yeah.
But every game was close enough that it just sort of felt like they could go either way, but the Celtics are just a bit better and just figured out a way to win like game after game after game. But now I know it's one game. It's one game. Boston, Milwaukee, one game. What? No one cares. But I think we can at least firmly say that Boston is a huge fraud, and their reputation as a contender is basically transparent propaganda by people who are trying to distract you from stealing their pot of gold.
Yeah,
We know that now after one game.
They want to distract you long enough for them to get the hand elongation surgery. So it's just a green hand instead of a tiny green hand. They have to break every finger gradually. What is this green hand? It's like, oh, thank you for noticing. It's always been this way.
So you made a good point, and I want you to elaborate on it. That, I mean, so many good points, but the one I'm specifically referring to is the one about how Giannis just sort of handled him. He didn't even have a hyper-efficient game by his own standards. I think he missed more shots than he typically does, but he ended up with a fairly panoramic line. I think he had a triple-double, 20-some points, early low teens on assists and rebounds, and didn't seem controllable from a Boston standpoint.
No, he was doing trick shots for fun. Hearing him talk about that shot, he was like, I don't know, I was stuck, so I just did it. I'm like, right. I mean, Williams seems hurt. I don't think he's 100% Time Lord. And Marcus Smart also was hurt, but Marcus Smart can't really do anything with Giannis. Giannis is too big, and we've been talking about this for years, right? Like, Tatum and or Brown and most players have trouble with huge physical defenders, and the Nets didn't really have that. But Giannis is big.
Well, and they also have
Brook Lopez,
an even better rim protector.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean that's Lopez's primary job, his function. That's the reason he's in the NBA, is because he can spread the floor with threes, but because he can stand by the rim and really impair people's ability to score at the basket. And we saw that happen to the Celtics yesterday. Tatum would get in there, and you'd have Giannis and Brook, and this is how the Nets had one of the best defenses or the best in the NBA for a couple years running, by wedging two enormous giants into the paint, daring you to score over them, and then improving their perimeter defense by adding Holiday and some other guys like Wes Matthews, etc. So I don't think the Celtics are going to shoot as poorly as they did in game one. They were absolutely bricking threes.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to have to take a lot of threes. Milwaukee will let you do that.
Famously, right? And we've talked about this. That is, at least a few years ago, I don't know if the numbers have changed that much, but they dare you to take shots that they don't let you take threes. They let certain players take threes. And they just run with the numbers on that. But
Derek White, feel free, sir.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like any one of the Celtics, just like go bomb away,
Well, they're definitely going to try to make Horford shoot, and he is a pretty good shooter, but he's also unlikely to knock down 9 threes in the game or something. Like, you can keep. I mean, this is what they did to teams like Philly in the past.
Yeah.
They know that Al Horford doesn't want to take 10 threes.
Yeah.
That it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
To a guy like him. He feels as if he's doing a disservice to his team. He feels as if he should take one every once in a while, not every time down. And Milwaukee basically uses that instinct against a team where they say, no, you can have that Al Horford 3 every single possession.
Right.
Does he want to take 25 threes today?
Yeah.
And Al Horford says, fuck no. I want to take like 4. I'm good with 4.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but here it is.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to give you. We're going to give you 25 Al Horford 3s.
Yeah.
Take them or leave them.
Man, it feels good to be a Bucks day one. Like, after suffering through the Nets series, like watching them execute like you're talking about. And I love the way they use Brook Lopez, because I think the Jazz use Rudy Gobert in wonky ways where he's like not only a rim protector, a perimeter defender, but also like the roaming safety, covering up for everyone's mistakes. Like, he can't do all 3 of these things. And you have a guy kind of like backpedaling with cartoon glass smashing sounds. But the way they use Brook Lopez is great. Just stay.
And I was just going to jump in. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
The point we were saying before is that they actually did give up the most threes a game.
Good.
This year, so they're kind of back. They're kind of back on their buck shit.
And part of that buck shit is not having Brook Lopez do too much, right? Like, he just stays put and just protects the fuck out of that rim, because they have Giannis, who's a little bit of a Band-Aid guy who kind of lunges and cheats more. Lopez doesn't do as much switching or cheating, and it's like, having him healthy is a big deal. I'm a Middleton guy. I love if he was so good, why is he named after being a town in middle of Manhattan? But
Why is he a middleman?
yeah, if he's so good. But I think I was shocked to see him not really make like an observable impact by not playing. I love him. I love him because he passes. I think he is a secret playmaker. Not so secret. Everyone knows he's a playmaker. And he can hit shots. And I just really love that boring ass kind of player. Sort of like rap groups from Philly that use live drums, or Chicago rappers who introduce all-stars.
We'll see what happens in terms of his absence going on. But I think the most interesting thing is you have two teams who are more or less employing the same basic defensive strategy. Like having a rim protecting shot blocker sort of play a free safety role, where you put them on guys who aren't dangerous 3-point shooters, and then having them kind of charge towards the rim when the other team gets around the paint, and to act as like a secondary shot blocker. And they both do it. And I think the Bucks are kind of the ones who invented it, and Robert Williams in that role, the Celtics, has done a great job at it too. So I think it'll be a cool chess match, seeing where they can put shooters out there, where that help's going to come from. If eventually they just have to change and play straight up, I don't know. I think that series is going to be pretty fun. I don't know if Middleton was there, I think the Bucks win that series fairly easily. I just am with you. I don't know what his actual impact will be.
Yeah. Let's see. I think it'll be a tough series too. But back to your Nets point about them losing 4 games with a differential of 18 total points. Like, it's really hard for me to think about how every game is a coin flip, but every game ends up one way. Like, I think it's going to be a tight series. It might be this Milwaukee Celtics series. It might go 7 or it might go 4. But they're pretty evenly matched, I think. It's nice to be a Giannis day one, because I know how great he is and fun he is, and not like someone who owns a green egg or has tactical sunglasses or talks about the way to play the right way. But watching him dominate against the Celtics is like the best way to do it, right? I'm like, well, if he's going to destroy somebody, might as well be a leprechaun.
I agree with that. And I don't think we need to talk about the Golden State Memphis series. We've already talked about Ja a little bit. I don't think we could. I'm saying we don't need to if we don't want to.
Come on, we have more perfect pods to make. We have a finite number of Jordan Poole takes. Let's not waste them all at once.
Or we could.
Or let's go.
Well, the point I was going to make was, when you're the underdog and you lose like you did in game 1, you can look at it 2 ways. You can say, we're right there. We can play with this team. Let's go out there and get a couple wins, and we can beat these guys. We can take 4. And the sad side, though, is, all right, well, this team's better than us. We needed that one. We had to have that close game. And to me, it's so difficult to come back in a series against a better team. And I know that Golden State doesn't have the same record as Memphis, right? Didn't Memphis end up with the second best record, I think? I believe that, they were at home.
Yep.
But Golden State, we kind of know is still better. That the healthy version of Golden State is like a very, very valid contender.
That's a number 1 seed over there.
And losing that game 1 in a close way is like, it's a moral victory, but it's actually a huge fucking impediment to possibly stealing that series.
Yeah, Ja going downhill for that game-winning layup, like, I saw that go in my mind, and
I liked the play. I thought
it was a great play.
I thought it was even if it was somewhat predictable. I thought it was pretty effective. They got a decent look. He might make that a decent amount of the time.
And Clay, I believe it was Clay. I think Clay just had a good position on him. But the Warriors' record has been affected down the stretch by Curry being hurt, right? Like, they kind of like slid for a couple weeks, but having all these guys back at the same time, it's all health, right? And like, I kind of want to talk about Joel Embiid too in a second, but like, obviously, but The Jordan Poole narrative, I think, is what I'm fixated on, because all these other guys are known commodities, and I don't really care about Wiggins. Shout out to that All-Star starter, but the Jordan Poole, the manufacturing of Jordan Poole as a star, I think, is fascinating because he's just getting more minutes. I think if you look at his numbers last year and this year, if you look at the 36 and 100 possession numbers, of 36 minutes and 100 possession numbers, he's doing the same thing pretty much. He's scoring at the same rate. And there's so many scores, and we've talked about this endlessly. We're in a scoring inflation era. I believe there's over 25 20-point scores. RJ Barrett, I think, is a 20-point scorer in this league. 10 years ago, there were 12. Shout out to David Lee, who was number 12. But, like, there are more ways to score, and this is great because you just talked about the Bucks. It's not like defenses are getting worse. Defenses are getting better, but defenses are also getting smarter. And sometimes there's going to be more points scored. I think offensive players are more skilled than ever. I think they know how to be that wandering basin in ways that have evolved in logical ways. But, you know, the Bucks will let you score every now and then, and a lot of teams will, but it's a whole different strategy, I think, in the NBA in 2022.
Well, you made a point that I've been thinking about, and not that many people actually discuss this, that there's the idea that modern players don't play defense, and obviously that's boomer propaganda, and everyone starts, you know, bitching and moaning about hand checking, and as if that was a total game change, like hand checking. The reality is that modern players take more valuable shots, so they are in the cumulative going to score a lot more points. It's not just that they're more talented. It's not just that there are more shooters on the court and everyone has handle and everyone's faster and stronger and bigger, and they've made, you know, advances in terms of play calling, etc. You just can't always fight the numbers. If teams were taking 10 3-pointers a game and they were taking 20 long twos, and now it's 33s and no long twos, just for example, the math is just going to be that you give up more points. Your defense might be exactly the same, even if we're pretending it hasn't gotten better. They're just taking more valuable shots. Like, no one is trying to take that, like, you know, contested, like, mid-range jumper unless they're a star. Like, yes, DeRozan is taking it and Embiid and Durant because that's their job and they're uniquely good at it. It's not like when you go back and you would look at, I don't know, Michael Olobakandi's numbers or something, and you're like a quarter of his shots were mid-range jumpers that he made 20% of. Like, that just would never, ever, ever happen in the modern NBA.
Shit.
Like, just wouldn't happen. There's no chance that a guy like him would be taking a bunch of mid-range jumpers and bricking them on an annual basis. It just would never occur. So, like, when you wean out those shots, the overall numbers go up. So when the combination of pace and valuable shot selection, like in terms of expected value, it's always going to look like today's guys aren't playing D. Their defense is fucking psycho, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's incredible, and they're adapting constantly too. I mean, a couple things I think are really interesting. Like, one thing is the peel switch, and I saw it. I think it was either Memphis or Minnesota pulled it off to get a big turnover late in the last game. I forget which team did it. I think it was Memphis got the steal, but I could be wrong. So the peel switch is something you'll see more of. Basically, if you get beaten off the dribble as a defender, instead of following your guy and trying to catch up, you peel off. That's why it's called that, and you take the guy who's in the corner, the offensive player, and your defensive guy who's in the corner is now helping in the lane. And this is a kind of a refutation of the Spurs ethos, which was never leave the corner man open. Like, never do it, never do it, never do it. Let them drive. If you get beaten, you get beaten, but do not leave the corner three. Right. So the new way is you actually leave the corner three, and then the other guy chases down, veers off to the right, and now guards that guy. So look out for that if you're watching the playoffs. But it leads to some really awesome turnovers because it's basically a way to counter the drive and pick, or excuse me, the drive and kick.
Named
so
after,
guys get by their man,
Right.
That you get by your man, you see the help coming, you're automatically kicking to that wing, and now you have a defender sliding right in the way for steals. Anyway, just as a heads up, it has a really cool backstory too, and
It's
that
named after Anthony Peeler, right? Lakers legend.
But the just before I move on, because I think it is cool, was that it kind of got introduced by this coach who learned it from the Angolan national team. The players had developed this themselves as a defensive system, where it's almost zone-ish in that way, but you're kind of switching behind the defense and helping on the drive. But the Angolan national team developed it. The coach learned about it, and now it's in the NBA. So, peel switch, you'll see it.
Is Angola the Olympic team with that buff dude who shows up all oiled up that has Twitter and a tizzy?
I don't know, but it's the team that got yammed all over by the Dream Team.
Oh, you hate to see it. Yeah, man. Yeah, awesome. Like, I love all this shit, and I was trying to figure out, like, this is, like, a Jazz-related thought. Like, Rudy Gobert has been deservedly, like, mocked on Twitter. He lost. He's known as, like, he's a famously great defender. Won 3 depoys, I believe. And he was hunted down the stretch. Like, how could a defensive player of the year be hunted in a playoff series? Is he a negative player? And I was like, this cannot be the case, because Rudy Gobert is, like, not a stiff. He's a great defender, and according to Common. And I watched some videos on it, and it turns out he's just surrounded by underachievers, players who don't want it enough, because he's constantly running around trying to cover up everyone's mistakes. And, like, this peel defense you talk about is interesting to me. I didn't see Utah do that at all, but, like,
I don't know if Utah does it. It doesn't seem to be a system defense, but I've seen more people employing it.
Does
And
Dre
as I
do
said,
it?
Dre would be the helper, right? So it's really a
Right.
guard thing. So you're getting beat off the dribble, and again, instead of chasing, you just zip down to the vacated man, and you're waiting basically to steal, like, the kick out. So it's really fast guards can do it more successfully.
And you always have to have a stationary rim protector.
Right. So this would actually be like you'd have your rim protector there, but this would be like the guy helping from the corner wing.
Right.
But if we're talking about Gobert, I mean, I do agree that there are opportunities to hunt someone like Gobert, like it
For sure.
But he's also a great defensive player.
Yeah.
He may not be ideal for winning a championship right now, because you might eventually run into someone who says, actually, we're just going to play him off the court. And you might run into a team who tries that and fails. But it might also be like, well, cool, try it. Go for it. We can live with that as, like, something that we may encounter in the playoffs. But we're trying to win a championship. I don't think saying, I mean, we saw people target Embiid. We saw people target Jokic and Gobert. I mean, 2 of those 3 are renowned as the best defensive big men in the league. And, obviously Jokic is better than he used to be.
Yeah, he's not bad.
But these guys were targeted repeatedly. I mean, they had Precious going at Embiid every single possession, like 8 in a row. So, like, Gobert being roasted for that, for being victimized, I'm like, hey, man, this is the game.
Yeah, yep. And, like, it's Donovan Mitchell and it's Mike Conley. Like, there's footage out there. They were talking about it during the games. Like, they're just watching plays a little bit. It's like you have to rotate. You have to go through a screen. Mitchell just gets stood up with every screen. Like, very successful screeners off of Mitchell. But, like, towards Mitchell. But, like, Rudy Gobert, I think, is closer to Brook Lopez, a player we just talked about. But, like, Brook Lopez is used in such a way that, I mean, there's no Giannis on the Jazz. There's no Middleton on the Jazz. There's no Drew Holiday on the Jazz. Like, you have that luxury of playing Brook Lopez that way. Utah Jazz don't have that luxury. That team, it's crazy, right? Like, I was thinking today that the Knicks have been bad for so long. There's no chance of them sniffing a championship with any of these players on the roster, in my opinion. I love them, whatever. But it's not that Utah has a better chance. I'm like, oh damn, Trae Young and the Hawks, like, they're not sniffing anything either. Like, we're all in the same pool aside from like 5 teams.
I think the situation confronting the Jazz is pretty familiar to a lot of teams who had a couple years of success, being a nominal contender and then saying, all right, are we either going to keep being good and try to basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to like brute force a championship run. We're just going to be good so long that things will fall into the right like pattern for us. The tumblers will click into place and we'll get a championship run just by virtue of being there and good year after year after year.
Future.
Or do you say, all right, we blow it up? Or do you say, is there a middle ground? And to me, trading Mitchell is obviously the move here.
Of course.
I think he is a good player who has value, but we see these young guys coming to the league, and I think in some ways Mitchell is kind of an early forerunner or prototype for them that are not great defensive players, but are really talented and can do a lot of things on offense as combo guards. And, whether it's Maxey or Poole or Tyler Hero, there are a lot of these guys out there. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of just find them. Mm-hmm. I just don't think, and I think these guys are good. I just don't think they're as scarce as, like, say, Rudy Gobert, who we know is, a 3-time defensive player of the year. If you could extract, say, a couple good draft picks and like Jeremy Grant, I'm just coming up with an example.
Sure.
Jeremy Grant from Detroit, whatever. I'm saying that's the kind of player who you say, okay, he could really help us turn into like a dynamic defensive team.
Yeah. I mean,
I think the Knicks are obviously a place you'd see what they have to offer. I'm just sort of thinking of that idea that you were talking about before. Like, you have Gobert, then a secondary rim protector, and you could just have an absolutely smothering defense.
Yeah.
He can spread the floor, he can create a little bit, and then, you'd get some other assets. That was just like a
I agree.
idea.
Gobert is the value there. I mean, he gets paid so much, and that's the trouble with it. He should be getting like Brook Lopez money, but Brook Lopez at one time got that Gobert money too. And to your point about like Donovan Mitchell kind of being gettable, and in this draft, there's like 4 Donovan Mitchells in there, shooting guards who just like are cups, are just like strolling cups, right? Like, they're just like talented scorers, questionable defense, all that stuff. The same scouting report for Donovan Mitchell. Very valuable players. Like, and the Knicks, have been talked about with Donovan Mitchell because he grew up. His dad works for the Mets. He's from Greater New York, not Poughkeepsie. I think Westchester, not Poughkeepsie. I mean Rochester. But the Knicks have him, right? Like, Emmanuel Quickley is someone the Knicks unearthed from a kind of undesirable draft position. Like, you don't waste that. Emmanuel Quickley is not a superstar, but you don't waste that hit by trying to unload for a player like Donovan Mitchell, who I think probably is better than IQ for sure, but like will cost
he's
you.
definitely better than IQ, but it's
going to cost
not
you.
only what does he cost you to acquire him, but what do you have to pay him in annual salary? If Mitchell's going to be making 35 a year, and IQ, maybe you can re-sign him for 10. No one's going to pay him a fucking max contract. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
At that point, you say, all right, is the difference between Mitchell and IQ worth $20 million a year? Maybe that question is yes. I'm sorry, maybe the answer is yes. Maybe it's actually probably not. We'd rather use that 20 elsewhere. Right. At the same time, Donovan Mitchell is a multi-time All-Star. He is someone that gets your fan base excited, that is from the region. Like, these things are all appealing to the Knicks as a franchise traditionally, and he's still pretty young. At this point, I don't actually know what the Knicks are saving their powder for. Is it Zion? Is it Mitchell? Do they have a shot at signing Levine? There are some options there. I brought up Harden,
but not anymore.
Right. I brought up Harden, which no Knicks fan likes, just because I think he's a distressed asset in Philly.
I love him, but he's gonna stay in Philly, right? Maury's his guy.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm saying I brought that up, and Knicks fans are like, "Fuck you, Dietrich." It's like, no, he's a distressed asset, and you only have to sign him to a 4-year deal, and you can get 30, 10, 10 Harden if you want. And everyone's like,
Harden's awesome.
no, we're building around McBride. I'm like, okay, got you.
Well, yeah, the Knicks are in a tough spot. Not to talk too much Knicks, but I just realized that Julius Randle has a 15% trade kicker, I believe. So it's going to be harder to move him than I thought. And he's like an odd player. He's not like a gimme like Bradley Beal is. So I don't know. We'll see. I just want them to come back with the same team. But there's a lot of Donovan Mitchell chatter because it doesn't seem like the Jazz can win a championship with him. I think they tried to add Mike Conley to kind of put the icing on the cake, and Conley's still pretty good, but they need a lot more than just to surround their core with veterans. And I hate the idea of blowing up a team this early because Mitchell and Gobert are young. But the perception of Mitchell has changed so drastically in the last half season that there's a couple sucker teams out there, and the Jazz would be wise to take advantage of the Knicks, I think.
But I also don't think the Knicks qualify as a sucker team at this point. It really comes down to if Dolan says, like, get her done.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
it wouldn't be the worst.
They haven't made sucker moves. They've really been cautious about trading picks. They've been typically amassing them rather than sloughing them off.
Right.
I don't see them going after Mitchell unless it seems to be an advantageous deal for them. Like, I just don't think they qualify as a stupid team anymore. They may not have a concrete direction. They may be compromised in certain ways where you say, well, Thibs is our guy, so we got to go get Derrick Rose. We got to get Taj Gibson. But I don't think they're going to make, trades where they sacrifice young guys in a reckless way like they might have before
with like Melo or something. Definitely. And getting, I'm not being a Mitchell hater. He's not my favorite type of player, but he would be the best Knick since Julius Randle last year. And it's a good thing, but
the best Knick since Nerlens Noel.
I mean, Julius Randle was second all NBA team.
Yeah.
So he had a bad season, but was the best Knick since Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, but just going back to the Jazz, I think that would be the move for me. I would explore the Mitchell trade market. Trading Gobert to me just puts you back to square one, where you're saying, okay, we're actually tearing this thing down. As long as you have Gobert, you're going to have a pretty good defense.
I agree.
I think he's the most efficient scorer who's ever lived, or one of them.
Right.
Like, he doesn't score a lot, but he catches lobs. He shoots 70% from the floor. He plays defense. He's clearly not the problem.
Right.
He's part of a solution, but he's not the whole solution either.
Do people hate him because he's French?
He's pretty joyless. I think they called him an Iron Giant in the Joy of Basketball. Like an unloved Iron Giant.
Yeah, I mean, him touching all the mics was an attempt at comedy, but that backfired on him, I think, in the biggest way possible. But I think as a whole, NBA Twitter and media has forgiven him for that moment because it turns out the problem was much bigger than one center in Utah.
And also that you don't give people COVID by rubbing microphones and then having them talk from it later.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he's been forgiven for that, but he still has this. People love to dunk on him, so every time Utah goes down, it's Gobert's fault. But I don't know. I watched those games, bro, and it was Donovan Mitchell's fault, right? He wasn't scoring enough points to be that bad at defense.
He is a truly putrid defender. I think there are a lot of guys who fall under that banner of a ambulatory vat for bucketry.
Trae Young.
And Trae Young, obviously a bad defender. Bradley Beal, bad defender. And Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard. There is a trade-off with these guys, and they are absolutely offensive stars, some more than others. out of those guys we're talking about, I think Trey and Dame are on a different level than guys like
Agreed. Mitchell or
guys like Mitchell or Beal to me
Yeah.
because of their abilities as distributors. But like it is a thing that separates you from being an absolute superstar.
Right.
It's like if you just can't defend, then like you can get picked on.
Yep.
And I'm with you. Like I think people understand how bad Mitchell is as a defender now. He dies on every screen, but there are also some plays where people would just go around him like he
Yep.
wasn't there.
Yep.
It was outrageous. I mean, it didn't even look like he was like a physical object on the court.
He pulled the wash YouTube Scalabrini. People were pulling the wash YouTube Scalabrini moves on him where they were like turning him around so he was like on the wrong hip and just like bumping him out of the way. And I'm like, oh, we saw this with the Red Mamba when he challenged all those YMCA legends and beat them like 11-0.
But you know what? The main takeaway here, I think, should not be
No, he's not the Red Mamba.
anger towards him and be like, no, I know, and be like, Mitchell sucks. He's not trying enough. He doesn't give the effort on defense, which I'm sure will be the sort of purest,
Right.
Illadelph Half-Life take on it. But the thing is, he didn't get to the NBA because he's a good defensive player.
Yeah.
He's there because he's a really, really good scorer and has been at every level for his whole life. There's no reason he would have the ability to play defense on a high level in the NBA. That's not why he's there.
Right. Right.
It's like saying, well, why can't Gobert shoot threes? He's not in the NBA to shoot threes.
Right.
He's not there because people say, this guy,
Yeah.
he's going to develop a three-pointer. He's going to handle the ball for us.
Yeah.
No, he's there to block fucking shots. He's there to get rebounds. He's there to catch lobs. Mitchell is in the NBA because he can score, because he can dribble, he can get to the basket, he's got his little scoop shots, he's got his Euros. He can't play NBA level defense. It is what it is. It's not a moral failing. That's not why he's there.
I know. I mean, his size is an issue. Like, I was thinking about Trae Young and my worst take of all time, which I thought the Trae Young for Luka Doncic draft day deal could go down as the most regrettable, worst optical trade on that day. I'm wrong. Trae Young is awesome. But, like, I'm less wrong now than I was 6 months ago because to me it's clear that Trae Young probably needs like a Batman, right? Like he probably needs to be a complement to a better player. Not only can you hunt Trae Young on defense as him as a defender, now you can kind of stop him as an offensive player as we saw in this series, and like that's a terrible combination for your superstar.
Well, you always, use the phrase, what is it? Styles make fights or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I think related to that is that when you are a superstar, eventually you're going to run into your kryptonite.
Yeah.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
And we even saw it happen to LeBron a couple times, going against, say, Kawhi Leonard. And that's LeBron.
Yeah.
That's the greatest player who's ever lived. And to his credit, I don't think Kawhi was ever kryptonite in that way. But Kawhi went hard against him and did a great job, one that visibly bothered LeBron, which is difficult to do.
Yeah.
And that's LeBron James. That's the fucking GOAT.
Yeah.
So when Luka would run into, I don't know, Kawhi Leonard, for example, it's like, well, this is going to be tricky. And I think we've seen that with all these guys. Giannis can beast on you until he runs into Bam.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if the Heat end up beating Philly and Milwaukee beats Boston, we're going to see an interesting series because for the first time in 2 years since they played Bam last year and Giannis got pretty much stymied, but the Heat just didn't have the firepower to beat the Bucks or even compete with them. They got rinsed. Giannis is not going to have a big series. He can't go off on Bam. He just can't do it. And that's not a critique of Giannis as a player, but Bam is one of the few guys who is his kryptonite. And
I overrate Bam Adebayo. He's a top player, man. He's fucking good.
He's great. Yeah. I think he was a totally valid Defensive Player of the Year winner, despite not being one of the final three contenders there.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at, just back to our point about Trae Young, it's like there are certain matchups that he is going to win when he goes against the Knicks. They did not have an answer for him.
No
and
shit.
then when he goes against Miami, like, no, we're big and we're mean. We're going to knock you down. We have like really disciplined team defense. We have a scheme. We're just not going to let you do your thing.
Yeah, he
Like, that's
can't
just
get
what's
his
gonna
shot
be.
off against longer defenders. Of course, he's tiny.
But anyway, I wanted to bring up the kryptonite idea because
Yep.
we have Embiid out now, and
Yeah.
he's out for at least the first 2 games against the Miami Heat. So we're going to see a version of Philly with James Harden that already has beaten Miami and beat the brakes off them earlier this season, and an Embiid and Hardenless team. But I would say that Philly is definitely the underdog at this point. I mean, not having Embiid for even part of the series, in a meeting between 2 teams that are probably evenly matched, could be enough to sink Philly. So the question I have for you, Andrew Quo, did Doc Rivers blow this series before it even started?
And we're recording this before Game 1 on Monday, but there's certain things that a coach has to do, I think. Motivate players, take care of them, protect them, get the best out, put them in positions to succeed, rotations, health, all this stuff. I think that's the job of a coach. And when I think about that, I think Doc Rivers made a mistake by leaving Joel Embiid in the game up, I believe, 29 points with 4 minutes to go. Everyone was still in. Nick Nurse still had his starters in. But I think Doc Rivers can be blamed for this. And I hate blaming coaches because it's like the laziest meat shield scapegoaty thing. But Doc Rivers made an error, and the probability of Joel Embiid getting hurt in that way is low. But he got hurt. He should not have been on the court. As soon as a team like the Sixers goes up double digits, you're watching the clock, being like, take your big guy out. At one point, do you take your big guy out? Even the broadcast starts looking at that clock, being like, okay, now you can take Joel Embiid out. And he didn't, and he broke his face.
My take on it is that I don't think we need to crucify Doc Rivers for this or vilify him. But it's still his fault.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to say, Doc, you imbecile. You left him out there. God damn it. But it was unquestionably his decision. He could have pulled him and didn't.
Yeah.
And I've looked at the Sixers overplaying their starters for months on end. Yeah. And this is not the first time he's had guys out there that shouldn't have been in the game really late. So, again, I don't think we need to say, Doc, you screwed up so big time. But, who else would it be on?
Exactly.
It's still on him. He is the one who calls that. He's the one who makes that call. When he saw them go up 25 with 5 minutes left, he could have said, get him out of the game.
Yep.
And you have to take care of your guys. And maybe part of it is that his fear of blowing a game and being crucified for it and having to answer for the media, and he has to say what had happened was and make up fan fiction about the 2003 Detroit Pistons winning a title and after beating his Orlando Magic instead of winning it the next year with Rasheed Wallace and Larry Brown.
There was a semantics issue there. He said that team won. Whatever. I know what you mean.
That franchise won later on.
That team, that exact team won, right?
No, Rasheed Wallace, not the same team.
Oh yeah, they
different
added
coach.
Rasheed.
But anyway, maybe he was feeling defensive and was like, no, let's lock this in, play it down the stretch. And when they say we're calling off our dogs, I'll call off our dogs. But then Embiid got his face broken. But the only upside though is that you don't want to go against an angry Doc Rivers. According to your boy Perk, that's the last thing that the Heat want to see.
Coaching angry.
Because when Doc is coaching angry, look out.
You don't want to punch a Doc Rivers pit bull. Make them aware.
When he's adjusting his rotations furiously.
Listen,
Making
Doc Rivers.
substitutions with wrath.
Every team has a plan against Doc Rivers until they get punched. Wow, that Doc Rivers, that angry Doc Rivers is not that smoke that any team wants to see. But
I'm making my adjustments while seething.
I mean, oh God, Doc does not seem happy, but who cares? And there's been talk about, like, what about the play where Embiid knocks Chris Boucher down? And was Siakam's elbow dirty? Was he trying to inflict that damage? Are they friends? Is there photos of them together? And I'm like, playoff basketball is amazing, and this is what we do. And I like your point. Doc Rivers has a choice at that point. It's not Siakam's fault. It's not Chris Boucher's fault. It's not the Bible's fault. It's not the joy of basketball's fault. It's Doc Rivers. He left him in the game. And I think there's a bit of luck here. And this is like where it gets all confusing. He probably does not get hurt, but he got hurt. In order to zero that possibility, you take him out of the game. And I think every coach does that. And I get the vibe why he didn't. I think Nick Nurse let his players in to give them that moment. I think all these players appreciate a coach leaving them in the game when they're about to win or get eliminated. Because, like...
I mean, Joe was definitely reveling in the moment. He was airplaning it around and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Did he deserve it because he hot dog? No. But, like, I think it's a nice
These
gesture.
things are not related.
No. But I do think it's a nice gesture to maybe be the devil's advocate to support Doc. I think leaving players on the court to enjoy a victory or to enjoy a season well played in an elimination scenario is like is a form of caring for your players' emotions. And I think it's cool to have the buzzer sound and have Joel and Siakam on the court. That's awesome. That said, fucking, it's only this first round of the playoffs. Like, yank 'em, man. Like, it's too risky, even if that chance is 2%.
I mean, when I look at James Harden in Philly so far and how he's been subjected to some criticism, and we talked about this last week, how I thought that, you know, his kind of underuse in Philly as just being a facilitator, distributor, might make him hesitant about staying there long term.
Sure.
And that Philly needed to find a way to turn him back into at least a version of like the 30, 10, and 10 James Harden. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what happens now, right? Because,
Sure.
you know, Paul Reed is not a guy you're going to feed in the post. He's never going to post up.
Right.
DeAndre Jordan, if he ends up getting minutes,
Wow.
is a guy who's catching lobs, and that's it. I don't know if Charles Bassey, who's their third string center, is going to play or not. But whatever the case is, they are not running the ball through the post anymore. So, you know, I think it would behoove Philly to say, how do we replicate, you know, Houston James Harden, or even last year in Brooklyn James Harden? How do we spread the court, maybe have one lob catcher, run some pick and rolls, have him basketball geniusing it up, and see if he can give the Heat work as like the sort of, you know, one-man army that we've seen in the past. And if I'm Harden, I'm kind of relishing in that opportunity because he's only really been the facilitator so far in Philly. And I think if he has a chance to really be the power source for Philly and get a win or two against Miami, I think that would go a long way towards sort of proving that he isn't, you know, a husk of a man.
Mm-hmm. And I hate that generalization that the best player on either team usually wins the series. It's definitely more complicated than that. And I love Bam Adebayo, but Harden is the best player in this series without Joe.
I mean, Jimmy's sick too, though.
But he's hurt, right? Is Jimmy?
I don't know.
Maybe comes back for game one, probably, right? Like,
well,
but
Lowry's already out.
Lowry's out. Jimmy Butler is not James Harden. James Harden is like a fucking good player. I know he's had some uneven performances lately, and so is Butler. But like, I gotta check on that. But Harden is an elite guy, and he can do a lot of things. And I don't know, man. Like, I almost,
seems
you know,
unclear to whether Butler is playing tonight or not. Just according to like
I think he
recent
is.
sort of earlier news, but I don't think he's definitely out though. He certainly he's questionable right now.
He's not 100%, right? He sat a couple.
No,
games.
he has knee soreness. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a big deal, and I love Jimmy Butler, man. And like, God, I heard some Knicks fans comparing R.J. Barrett to Jimmy Butler, and I almost spit out my giant pork cutlet. But I don't know. I have the same take with the Sixers that I did with their first round matchup. I'm like, win the series. I think you guys are still good enough. I think this roster is still excellent. Losing Joel Embiid is breathtaking. Like, he is the best player in the NBA probably. But like, I don't know. James Harden and Maxey versus Bam, 3/4 of a Jimmy Butler. Like, just go to work, man. The Heat are deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think Harden is, you know, is more of a. In the past, Harden has been a tier above Jimmy Butler because of his offensive abilities, and I think he still has them. Mm-hmm. Jimmy's obviously a really tough defensive player too.
Yes.
But, yeah, I don't have any issue with someone saying that Harden is better than Jimmy Butler. I don't have an issue with that at all. Mm-hmm. I do think
Bam is fucking
Bam and Butler are that's two tough customers. If you have Embiid and Harden, you arguably have the two best players in the series. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if Embiid's out, you know, then you're talking about one of the best three.
I mean, it's a lousy metric, right? Like, I kind of was left bait out this for Celtics fans, where I'm like, oh, Jaylen Brown is your fourth best player. And everyone's like, oh my God, this team is sick. You're wrong, but if that's true, this team is unbeatable. I'm like, no, but your best player is the third best player on the Sixers. Your best player is the third best player on the Heat. You know, it's just like ranking these players just kind of means so little, right? It's like, well, who's the big three?
I agree. I just think it's important to remember that the Celtics are frauds.
God, I hope you're right.
One thing is, I will say, every year, there's someone in the first round who goes bonkers and has a great first round, and they're declared a star.
Oh, yeah,
and it happens all the time. It's happened
sure.
with Lillard. It's happened with Jamal Murray, I think. It's happened with Bradley Beal. There's always someone.
Tyler Hero, he sustained it.
A couple great games.
Yeah.
And they're just like, whoa, this guy's letting it be known. He's a top 5 player.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're Boston, the number one candidate right now is Jason Tatum on that. He played really well, and the Leprechauns, you know, got their tiny little shoe cases out. Their little,
Right.
They raised their little, you know, little tiny little symbols of mead, and cheers to Jason Tatum now ascending to being a top 3 player after having an excellent series against KD. Well, maybe he's your guy this year.
Year 5, man, he's on schedule. Like, with Tatum, it's always next year he's going to be MVP. I love the chatter around Tatum, but how can he win multiple MVPs when there's Giannis in the league, when there's Jokic? I think Joel will be around for a while longer.
Doubt the BMM at your own peril, sir.
This is very true, because where are those tiny green ballads?
Look, they turned Marcus Smart into a defensive player of the year winner when he wasn't even mentioned as a candidate early on. It was going to be Robert Williams. They just spirited up a new candidate to say, here he is. This is the guy who's going to win. It's got to be a Celtic. Well, here he is, Marcus.
I mean, yeah, I think, I mean, we've heard this about Tatum forever, but he's having a classic Tatum series. Advanced metrics love him. If you love advanced metrics, you love Tatum, because they kind of shift all these equations for him. But like, I don't know. Let's check it out. Postseason game log: 6 for 18, 9 for 16, 13 for 29, 5 for 16, 9 for 18. That's fine. That's a lot of shots at a medium rate, right? 33%, 56%, 48%, 44%, 31%, 50%. Like, that's not Bam Adebayo good.
We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, whatever.
No, I mean, we'll see. Again, my thing is just saying, we know who he is. He's a good player. And he had a good enough series and was excellent, defensively and scored a lot of points.
Yeah, he was good
He was over there going against KD, and there were people saying, well, this is the future of the NBA. Here it is. Is he top 3? Is he the best player on the court? I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. Because every year someone goes crazy in a first-round series and is anointed as something. And he would be your number one candidate for that this season. So, again, we'll see what transpires against the Bucks as a Milwaukee day one.
Aspire to be a Bam. Try not to be a Mitchell. Respect it on
I love cookies.
We did it. Another.
See you guys on Saturday.
I love cookies.